That's going to be really useful. So I'm excited that you guys are here, and we'll see how we can keep this thing growing. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got a presentation, um, kind of help us track if we go through everything. So if that works. Can y'all see that?
Yep.
All right, cool. I'm working with two screens for the first time too, so I'm making sure everything's working. All right, guys. So, obviously this is Integrate, helping warriors find their way home. I'm really excited about these lessons. The way we're going to structure it is every other week there will be one lesson, and then the following week will be a discussion and Q&A. So we'll be, teaching various material, diving into different subjects. And then the following week we'll have, a little more time to dive into that. Those discussions are meant to be group discussions. I really want guys to be able to kind of share what they've learned about these various subjects, and as an opportunity for us to listen through to what guys are going through, how they're applying this material, and what they're learning. So I'll be doing 6 lessons over the next 12 weeks. So it'll be 6 lessons, 6 discussions and Q&As. We'll have a variety of assignments throughout. But I know we all got stuff going on outside of this. So, I want it to be an obtainable amount of material. Maybe an hour outside of here of self-study or something where you can dive into this material and at least prepare for these discussions, because I really want these discussions to be very thought-provoking, and everybody to apply this in their own unique way. So what I'm looking at doing is running this course for the next 12 weeks. I'm just going to be volunteering my time. Like, this is really important for me to figure out my teaching style and to get into this material. And a lot of this is keeping me accountable as well. So I'm really excited to see, how much I learn and grow throughout this 12 weeks. And I know that we're all on that journey together. And then at the end of the 12 weeks, what I'd really like to do is host some sort of event or maybe a summit here in Austin, where we could get an Airbnb and maybe do some, group workouts and little breakout sessions and workshops and stuff like that. So I'll be keeping y'all up to date on all this. If you haven't already, I did launch the website. It's just integrate.com. There's a form that I need you guys to fill out on the homepage. What I'm trying to do is just get this like clockwork. So we'll have the lesson, we'll have the call, and then the next day or two, I'll be doing a newsletter and recap of that call, which will go over all the material, as well as lay out what the assignments are for the self-study. And I'll be putting these presentations in there as well, so you'll have access to all this material. So if you don't fill out that form, you won't be in the loop as far as when the calls are going to be, or if you miss a call and your schedule's busy or whatever, you won't get that recap. So I'll also be attaching a video of each call, so that if guys are busy, they can hop on, watch that call back, and then catch up with us the next week. And then other than filling out that form, all I'm really asking is that, if any guys in your network come to mind that you think would get value from this, be sure to shoot them that text, reach out, see how they're doing. I'm really excited. Like, this is reconnecting me with guys that I served with. It looks like, Derek linking up with Quad, like it's bringing guys together. So I'm really excited to see, how everybody's paths cross, and who we can get in here that really needs it, and how we can inspire each other. So, this is a look at our events page. Obviously, most of y'all probably already went there to get here, but it's real easy. It's by date. And then you'll just be able to hop on each call every Tuesday night from here. Other than the recap and the weekly newsletter, this will also be somewhere that I'll be posting the videos, so guys can come through the website, watch these calls back, even if they're a past event. So even if somebody joins late, they can get up to speed and get on par with the lesson plan. All right, so this is kind of the roadmap of our call today. We're probably going to dive into about 40, 45 minutes of material. I'm really excited to have everybody introduce themselves and have a minute to talk about where they're at. So we're going to do introductions, and then today's material is going to be an introduction to archetypes, an intro to human design, and then we'll do a discussion and Q&A at the end. So we'll be able to break into this material and kind of break it apart. So most of y'all know me by now. I guess this goes out to Quat. I'm glad you're here, man. But I'm Evan Duvall. I was in the Navy from 2014 to 2020. I got out. I was a personal trainer. I was a coach. I jumped from that. I started hosting live events. I ran a podcast for a little bit. I just dove into like a myriad of identities and routes, and built various businesses, and it's just been a journey. So, I'm going to share a lot more about what that journey's been like, and what that road has consisted of. But throughout the last 3 years since I got out of the military, I've met a ton of great people, Heidi Scheck being one of them. And I'm really excited to introduce you to her. She's been there for me the last few years as a friend, as a mentor, and she's just a wealth of knowledge and all around badass. So I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of talk about your background, Heidi. And thank you for hopping on with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I am honored to be here and to support you in this endeavor. I remember when we first started working on this over a year ago, so it's cool to see it starting to come to fruition. I have been on a journey my whole life of personal discovery, but a really intensive personal healing journey for probably about the last 12 years. I've experienced the loss of many loved ones in my life, and some multitude of hardships that have really shaped me into a very resilient person. I was a career tattoo artist for 13 years, and through my healing journey, started to realize the ways in which that lifestyle was unsustainable, and challenged myself to kind of blow up my life and explore some other avenues. So I still tattoo part-time, but I've also started a life coaching business. Left a long-term relationship, moved to Texas from Seattle, and yeah, just kind of started with a clean slate, and have just continued my journey with a new chapter. And met Evan a few years ago, and he's been a great support for me throughout my transition. And yeah, once again, just happy to be here and be able to support him in any way I can.
Exciting. Yeah, since we got, relatively only a few of us on this call, I'd like for all of us to again introduce ourselves, and if you want to mention what branch of service you're in, or where you're currently at in life, what you're doing for work. But I'd like to hear more about kind of where y'all are at individually.
Hey Evan, I can go ahead. Let me see. Kick this video on so everybody can see what I look like. All right, hey everybody. My name is Nick Ziwi, Navy veteran. Me and Evan, we actually went to boot camp together, and then kind of went our separate ways. So from 2014 to I got off active duty in 2018. Stayed in the reserves a few years after, and then I got out, went to school on the GI Bill. So went to LSU and graduated college and moved out to Texas, and now I work for Chevron. As you can see, I'm stuck on the night shift in my office here. And yeah, kind of like Evan said, it's been a journey. It's kind of crazy, and I'm sure everybody on this call can attest. Kind of where you start to where you are now, and then forecasting out in the future where we'll probably go. It's just a evolving journey, and so that's what's really cool about Evan, you starting this, kind of bringing together the community with personal development and kind of whatever else you got in store for us. So I'm excited, and it's a pleasure to meet everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Appreciate that, man.
Nice to meet you, man. I'll go ahead and go after Nick. name is Derek. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. So I kind of grew up. I moved around a lot as a kid. Grew up in Texas and Georgia and New York, different uh, impoverished neighborhoods. Not the greatest neighborhoods, but I wanted to get away from that and escape it and be different from everybody else in my family. So I went into the military, and I was also having a kid at the same time. So it was a lot for me, to go into the military and be a father for the first time. Like it was a crazy experience at first, and it was rough, but I got through it, and it made me better. And my daughter's definitely like been my motivation to just continue to push and never like fail at anything. Just try to be my best. And I was in the military for 7 years, from 2016 to 2023. So I just got out a couple months ago. It hasn't even been a year yet. It's about to hit a year soon, but I've really been doing a lot better actually since I've left the military. I'm going to school right now for music business, and I also make music as well as an artist. So yeah, this is where I'm at right now. I'm pretty content with the way I've gone in my life so far.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Derek.
Yeah, let me get this camera on. My apologies, y'all.
No, you're
Just
good.
got done cooking dinner for the kiddos. Give me a second. Give me a second. All right. I don't know if y'all can see me, but I'm Quay. I did 10 years in the Army. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I enlisted in 2009 when my mother passed. Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a strong, long journey for me. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I got full custody of my daughter after my first deployment.
Damn.
My baby mother tried to pull a backdoor Jody story, but it backfired. And they gave me, granted me custody and all that. I went to a little bit of college. I didn't complete it because, I had to come home early. Let's just say that to get my daughter. So now I'm back in school actually with something called Project Quest that the VA put me with, and I'm trying to go back to be a cybersecurity C+ specialist. So yeah, that's trying to jump back on track with that. But yeah, I've been knowing Derek since 2000. I want to say 6 from Mount Zion actually.
Oh, way
Like
back.
we've been, it was funny. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I just end up so happily moved up out here and didn't realize he was out here until a year or so later. So
Oh yeah.
it's been
Hell
great.
Yeah. Oh man, well you ended up in a good spot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I hear you guys, and I know like from Heidi's story all the way through, myself included, like it's a trip looking back, man. A lot of times
It is.
insight, there's a lot of twists and turns, and how y'all have all dealt with, the various sudden changes and serious responsibilities, man. Like y'all should be proud, and it's a statement that y'all are here and like wanting more. And I think that's the basis of integrated self is like, I think, we've got access to a great network here in Austin. Like I've had, a variety of mentors and teachers and friends that I really look up to and I'm inspired by and have taught me a lot, and that's why I really started kind of thinking about what this program could be. Was like, I knew there's guys that they're going back to Atlanta, Georgia, they're in Philly or, Kansas City, wherever, that may not have access to this sort of network. So I think, even if we can facilitate that online and virtually and bring the right guys that are looking for something that pulls them out of that day-to-day grind, because, I've had access to community. I've had a lot of pursuits and endeavors that have given me, a sense of purpose and direction, but I've still gotten lost along the way. I've still felt hopeless. I've still found myself at rock bottom multiple times, just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, where is the meaning in all this? And like, where am I gonna break through? And like my expectation for myself, like many of you guys, is really high, so, and I don't think that needs to change. I think we're all high performers. We're all really motivated to do something that matters. And so I think that's where we can kind of one, this material can kind of be a roadmap, and that self-exploration and how, that can kind of, start to give us ideas. And like, what's really important is that we're grounded in our values and we're grounded in our identity as we pursue these various things, because there's going to be success, there's going to be failure, but losing sight of what your values are and who you are, that's when shit gets scary. And I think we've all been there before. So, I
I'm
think,
kind of going through that right now, if you don't mind me interrupting. I have
yeah,
a
please.
question for you, because I just lost my father a day before my daughter's birthday, actually 2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry.
And 2 weeks prior to that, I lost my job due to medical discrimination. So now I have a lawyer from the VA, a JAG lawyer, trying to help me fight my case because they didn't want to give me accommodations. And it's like, mentally, you can ask Derek. I try to keep a smile on my face, but don't nobody know this. I've been like, and I'm trying to stop it from doing that because I have kids and soon to be fiance, and I don't want it to brush off on them. And it's
Yeah.
like, when I seen this post on Derek's story, I was like, you know what? Let me join it. Like, there's not too many brethren out there, whether female or male. Like, when I say that, I mean military or people that have been through traumatic experiences trying to get their life back on track. That a
100%.
lot of folks don't give you the roadmap or the guidelines. They just be like, hold your head and go back out there. And a lot of folks don't know where to go.
Yeah,
I'm one of them folks right now. So I'm
exactly.
open attentively.
No, for sure, man. And I think that's exactly what we're here for, and I want this to be that support network, where you can, as you're going through that right now, like in these calls, start to bring up, what you're going through and how these lessons are kind of giving you a sense of grounding as you're going through that, man. I'm sorry for your loss, and the timing of that is terrible, man. So yeah, I hope this material helps. And I think as we get into this today, I think we'll give you some tools and stuff that can kind of give you a guide to what's happening, what our story's like, and how we're relating to everything that's happening around us. So I want to get into the lesson. I don't want to keep y'all on here all night. So we're going to go into archetypes and human design. So these are kind of broader concepts, and like, I've been exposed to these as I started transitioning out. And they've really helped me kind of like ground into what kind of patterns are going on in my life and how I'm relating with the world around me. And when I can recognize these patterns, I can associate whether it's benefiting me in that time and place, or if I need to make some changes, and I want to carry myself in a different way. There's certain patterns and these trends that I can kind of focus on and work towards. So we're going to dive into archetypes. So the term archetype means original pattern in Greek. Okay. So we're going to dive into some of this material. The guy that actually wrote about this philosophy and really expanded on archetypes that we're going to dive into, his name was Carl Jung. Basically a legend. Let's put 1875 through 1961. So he lived a long life. And you can kind of read about it here. But essentially, he wanted to identify what these 12 primary archetypes were, and how they related to, our motivations and how we show up as humans. So I think it's really interesting. We'll dive into this with Heidi tonight, and kind of each of these archetypes and expand on it from there. But Heidi, do you want to kind of break it down and do an intro?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the reason that archetypes in general can be so helpful is that they can provide us with some templates for the spectrum of the different ways that we show up in our lives. And oftentimes, let me back up. First thing I'll say is that we all, to some extent, embody every archetype, but there are often certain archetypes that we tend to resonate with more deeply and that tend to express more throughout our life. And I think that what they can provide is I don't know if validation is really necessarily the word, but almost maybe like affirmation that the way that we relate to things, the perception that we have, the ways that we work best and best like recover energetically, and the ways that we are in relationship, they can help affirm that like this is how we're wired to a certain extent, and that there's not really anything wrong with you because you have tendencies to do things a certain way. And I think it can also help us understand why other people behave and show up in certain ways, and can help us cultivate compassion for other people as well as ourselves, versus having a contentious relationship with parts of ourselves and subsequently projecting that onto other people. Anything else that's coming to mind for you, Evan, that feels important to touch on?
Yeah, I think
Around
like
that.
what's been really interesting to me, like you said, is like as I'm experiencing things, like it can feel chaotic, you know, and if you feel lost, like this at least gives you something to focus on, that gives you know, where you're at, some sort of explanation. If you can look into that and journal on it and study it, like you'll start to recognize, you know, some of these roles or masks, or you know, there's a lot of various names that you can call an archetype, you know. So have y'all heard of, you know, like saying that like you're wearing a mask, or you know, identifying as something, like this is in line with all of that. So some of these are positive. I think there's you know, an idealistic side of all of these various archetypes and roles that we play. But I think it's really important also to acknowledge the shadow side, and how some of these things show up. So, you know, today is just supposed to be an intro. I've found these things really interesting and expansive, and they've been really grounding and created a lot of awareness for me and how I'm telling my story, how I've related to myself and others in the past. And I think you'll start to see some trends where it'll kind of spark some ideas of like, oh shit, like that sounds familiar. I've done that. I've been that. So I kind of want to jump into each of these archetypes, and then if any of y'all see anything that's interesting, or that you've experienced or are experiencing, yeah, go ahead and speak on it, man, because I think that's the coolest part, is when you start to see yourself in some of these things. So these are the 12 Jungian archetypes. There's the ruler, there's the creator, there's the artist, there's the sage, the innocent, the explorer, the rebel, the hero, the wizard, the jester, the everyman, the lover, and the caregiver. Okay, so I'm sure already there's a few on there that you're like, okay, cool, like, you know, or you know, a lot of us are kings, you know, there's a queen on this call, like how are we embodying that? You know, how do we want to show up in this world? So we'll go through each of these. I think it's really interesting how he broke them down. And we'll get into that real quick. So Heidi, you go ahead and take this and speak to this.
Oh, this whole 4 cardinal orientations.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the first one, well, you put this together, so just please jump in and expand if you feel like I'm missing anything. But yeah, first, ego, leave a mark on the world. I mean, I think ego is really important to touch on a little bit, because there are a lot of connotations around ego, and I think they're often very negative. But ego is very important. It's a vital part of our being. And once again, I think like archetypes, it exists on a spectrum, and it is how we ultimately present to the world. And so the fact that it says leave a mark on the world, I think the point here, and also that you can bring back to archetypes in general, is that like bringing awareness to these can help empower you to be very intentional about how you embody them, which is like where your power lies in that. Order provides structure to the world. So yeah, that's bringing you know, like a discerning eye and a plan to whatever the vision is, so that you can actually manifest it in the 3D, in the physical. Like, what is it going to take? What resources do you need? What's the first, second, third step? you know, what kind of support do you need, so on and so forth. And then you have social, so connection with others, which, you know, I think sometimes we like to try to downplay the importance of that. But if we think about things from a primal survival standpoint, humans are tribal beings, and we literally depend on acceptance from the tribe for survival. So social connection is absolutely critical for mental health and just for people to thrive in general in life. And then finally you have freedom, which is kind of like almost the biggest order, because it requires you striking a balance between all these other things in a way that you honor your values and what is important to you, but you do so in a way that it also benefits everybody else that you impact in the choices that you make. Yeah, and so true freedom is really the biggest responsibility, because it comes from taking your responsibility. Like, that is the ticket to your freedom, is like claiming your responsibility. Do you have anything else that you want to add to any of those?
Yeah, no, I think like obviously these are the four orientations that each of these roles is seeking to find. So I think like if we're you know really just encompassing one or two of these, like we need to find balance through all of them, right? So like we were saying earlier, it's like ego, leave a mark on the world, like that might be an intention. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're taking action. That may just be your wants and needs, and like this like way that you're relating with the world, or who you think you could be, or what you think your potential is. If you're just operating in that, people get tired of hearing you talk about what you're gonna do one day, or how you're gonna be worth $1 million, whatever it may be. Like, we see it all the time. We see a lot of people just operating on that ego level. I think if you just get stuck in the order and you're constantly trying to find structure and safety and security in everything you do, and you're over analyzing, and you're unable to make a move and take action, like obviously that's not going to be beneficial to you accomplishing anything. The social aspect, like your connection with others, like that is what we're doing here, where it's like I'm not necessarily involved in y'all's day to day, but you're getting a social interaction here by being able to voice what you're going through, what you're struggling with, like what your wants and hopes are. And I think that connection can bring a lot to light, because and if that's in any capacity, if you open up about what you're going through, you're probably going to find that connection with others and realize that they're also going through what they're going through, and we're all trying to work our way to the top, right? And that freedom, that yearning for paradise, that's that beach house that you want to buy, that's that studio you want to build, Derek. Like that, all of these things have to happen, I think, to do something successfully. And I think it's really interesting to focus on these things and see how they're showing up. And when you feel out of balance, like, see if you can identify which one of these that you're really fixated on, or if you're in balance with all four of these. So these 12 Jungian archetypes, they're split into ego types, soul types, and self types. Okay, so there's 4 of each. So that makes up the 12 Jungian archetypes. So first we'll go into ego types. So I kind of want to just like touch on these again. Like, we'll read through them pretty briefly. You will have access to this presentation when I send the recap out tomorrow. So what I'd like to do is, and we'll go out over this at the end, but your assignment for this week is to pick 2 archetypes that you think like that you've embodied, whether that's in the past or that you're currently embodying. So as we go through, look for, things that you identify with. And like I said, if anything sticks out, we'll kind of break that down and see how we're all relating to these. All right. So we'll go through the innocent. Motto is free to be you and me. Core desire to get to paradise. Goal to be happy. Greatest fear to be punished for doing something wrong or bad. strategy to do things right. Weakness, boring for all their naive innocence. Talent, faith, and optimism. The innocent is also known as a utopian, traditionalist, naive, mystic, saint, romantic, dreamer. Like all of these have a lot of names. Okay, so I think as we identify these archetypes, we'll notice how we could step into, like Heidi said, at some point we embody all of these. Which ones that you're walking around in and day to day and that you're heavily identifying with. I think that's important to identify. All right, so the everyman, we'll go over two at a time, and then if anybody sees anything that they think is interesting, let's get a little interactive with this. So motto: all men and women are created equal. Core desire: connecting with others. Goal: to belong. Greatest fear: to be left out or to stand out from the crowd. Strategy: develop ordinary solid virtues, be down to earth, the common touch. Weakness: losing oneself in an effort to blend in or for the sake of superficial relationships. That's a big one. I definitely see a lot of patterns in that. Talent: realism, empathy, lack of pretense. The everyman is also known as the good old boy, regular guy, girl, the person next door, the realist, the working stiff, solid citizen, the good neighbor, the silent majority. All right. So does anybody see anything in these, two examples that they think is interesting and that they identify with?
Yeah, Evan, I think man, it's interesting, the everyman. Down at the bottom before it even said silent majority, that's kind of what I had in my mind. I said, like it seems like that's kind of like your mass.
Yeah.
Like most people could probably be, and I'm sure to some extent all people like you said, have some of this, but kind of molding to your environment and wanting to fit in, and people want to belong, right? And so I think that's probably like your core
No, I
ego
agree.
right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think you're right. Anybody else see anything?
Oh yeah, I think
I
some
resonate
traits.
with the innocent a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of neutral, you don't want to you want everything to be good and, like everybody to just kind of be themselves and whatever.
Yeah, I'm it is what it is type of person.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think, what's up?
I was gonna say I feel like I could relate to the everyman in some ways.
Yeah, man,
Um,
I definitely have as well. I think, and Heidi kind of helped me, realize this and what the feeling that I get when I read through these is that, not all these descriptions make you feel good. You kind of feel attacked, you kind of feel exposed. You're like, oh shit, like that's not necessarily positive, but I am that. So I think that's what's good about a lot of these things is like these patterns are going to cut to the core of how we interact. And we'll kind of expand on that as we go. But something I learned that I, really started working on over the last year was more that everyman archetype where, I fucking hate the term people pleaser, man. Like that term makes me really uncomfortable. And like, until probably a year ago, I'd been like, no, fuck that. I'm not a people pleaser. Like, nah. And then like I went through this self-realization, and the truth was that I was the definition of a people pleaser, and that's just how I was operating. I wanted everything to be good. I wanted to lift everybody up. I wanted to connect with everybody. I could find a friend and a stranger, it's all these things. But
yeah,
then, I had to learn the hard way that, not everybody has your best interests at heart. There's gonna be people, there's gonna be leeches that latch on to that energy, and you're just gonna give. And so I think that's where we can find the shadow side of these good or bad traits, and we can start to identify like where we're losing energy and where it's not benefiting us. So
Question: can that extend down to like relationships?
absolutely.
for the everyman,
Yeah, Heidi, do you want to
I
touch
was
on?
looking at the weakness, and it's like you try to better yourself, but bettering yourself is also losing yourself in one sense, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I think that honestly, it's probably valuable to look at these in general as related to relationship, whether it's relationship to yourself or other people, both. And I think that, like Evan was saying, when he noticed that he was having some kind of resistance to an idea, like even a term that kind of triggered some kind of resistance in him, noticing those can be really telling. There's a lot of intelligence there. When you notice you have resistance, it's usually something we don't want to look at. So like the key is getting curious, why is that? And there's a lot that you can find. It's not all necessarily going to be fun. But getting to your question about relationships and like losing yourself, and how do I know, what's the best decision to make? So the very reductionist answer that I would give you, and then I'll expand just like really briefly, is that basically, if you're really solid in your values and what's important to you, then you doing what's best for you is also what's best for everybody else in your life. But sometimes that is really difficult to accept, because that often requires holding strong boundaries that are very potentially going to create a lot of discomfort for you, and potentially trigger other people in your life, and potentially cause them discomfort as well. So that's something that I think is important for us to start to understand, that like making the best decision for people doesn't always look super pretty right out the gates, which is why working on personal integrity and seeing yourself very clearly so that you can clearly assess what your values are and use those as your guideposts to make your choices going forward is really, really important. So I hope that was helpful.
Actually, it was. I can apply that both ways to myself as well, because sometimes, when people try to tell you, shall I say, give you advice, you'll think it's just because they're trying to tell you what to do, but it's actually bettering you in the long run, but you don't see that.
yeah, sometimes the
I'm
truth
one of
is
those
hard.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like going back a little bit, the everyman, like I've also, been in relationships and situations in life where, you know, it can tend to be one way as well, and if you're constantly giving energy away and you're supporting someone and you're like the backbone in that relationship, and if you change or switch things up and you start creating boundaries, or honestly like take that energy away, sometimes people can kind of spin out, and you'll really see like whether people have your best interests at heart, or if they're just kind of latched on because you're giving something to them that they need. So it's something to be aware of, especially in relationships. So that
Or
might be something to take a note on and kind of look into. And over the course of this next week and before the next call, like I really want y'all to kind of see what's sticking out, maybe make note of it, and then let's dive into those things over the next 7 days or so. So let's dive into the hero. Okay, so motto: where there's a will, there's a way. Core desire: to prove one's worth through courageous acts. Goal: expert mastery in a way that improves the world. Greatest fear: weakness, vulnerability, being a chicken. Sound familiar, boys? Like that. That is the environment that we come from, right? Strategy: to be as strong and competent as possible. Weakness: arrogance, always needing another battle to fight. Talent: competence and courage. The hero is known as the warrior, the crusader, the rescuer, the superhero, the soldier, dragon slayer, the winner, and the team player. So very much in line with where we come from, and where we came up as men. This was what we saw ourselves as. Like, we wanted to be this archetype to everyone around us. This is what we wanted to be. This is what we joined the military to fucking do. And this doesn't work everywhere. Like, I got out of the military, I just started running through brick walls trying to do those to prove my worth, through those courageous acts over and over and over. I was running through brick walls. My body, my mind, my nervous system, everything started to break down. And I realized that I needed to expand in some of these other archetypes, some of these other roles, so that I could be a whole person, and actually sustain in this game. So yeah, and then I'll go over the caregiver, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll kind of break down what we see in these. So the caregiver, love your neighbor as yourself. Core desires to protect and care for others. Goal to help others. Greatest fear, selfishness and gratitude. Strategy, doing things for others. Weakness, martyrdom and being exploited. Talent, compassion, generosity. The caregiver is also the saint, altruist, parent, helper, supporter. So again, like, what sticks out to you guys? Like, what do y'all see in these?
I definitely see, like, trying to be the hero. Because especially because of the military, people are automatically kind of view you that way. Like, especially when you got family members and people you grew up with that never had any military experience. They just automatically look at you that way no matter what. So it's definitely a lot to relate to, but I don't necessarily feel like I exactly relate to either one of these. But if I were to say which one I could lean more towards, it would definitely be the hero.
Well, yeah, that's good awareness.
I would say I'm torn in between the two because my dad, growing up, he would have us, in the hero form. Don't be a chicken. Stand up high. Stand for what's right. If you
Yeah,
don't do this, you're not a man. But the mother raised the caregiver in me. The
yeah,
nurturer, the selflessness, the ingratitude, doing stuff for others, even though it don't benefit me. Like, that's me
yeah,
as a natural person.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, there's a lot of positivity in what you just spoke about. I think those are good values, man. So it's like, we don't need to focus on the negative aspect. If we think that we embody these well and we can carry that, and it's not, wearing on us and taking all of our energy, and like, if we think these are our better traits, make note of that. Like, I
yeah,
think I embody the hero well. I think I embody the caregiver well. And
mm,
but there's always that flip side of the coin. The
yeah,
I
it's
noticed,
always a double-edged sword.
yes, sir.
And
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you, but
No.
I've been reading a lot of books lately, and that's what it tells me. You have to actually focus on the good, but acknowledge the bad within itself. Like, there's no way you're going to get to the good ignoring the bad, because
Yeah.
if not, the bad is going to resurface. So you have to find those pinpoints of the good. Tell yourself that's who you are, that's what you're going to do, and that's what you can be. The more
100%.
you think about what the negative, the more on the negative side that you think about things, man, I was doing this for this person. I was a martyrdom. I was a chicken. You're going to actually manifest those things and become that side that you don't want.
Yeah, I agree, man. And something that the martyrdom and being exploited for me is huge. And that caregiver archetype, where you're willing to sacrifice your own safety and security for others, even if if you're being a martyr, and people are taking things out on you, or maybe they're like, saying you did things that you didn't do, or whatever it could be, and you're like, yeah, fuck it, like, I want what's best for
Yeah,
you.
I did it.
Yeah, I'm willing to take that. I can carry that. I think that can be the shadow side of that willingness to, if you do that over and over and over, guess who that plays out? People don't respect you. In the end, they take advantage, so and we've all been there as the caregiver, where we feel like we're doing something good, and then somebody takes it for granted, or like, there, there's no reciprocity, or whatever it may be. So again, like, these can be things that we embody really well, but it is important to make note of that uh that that kind of shadow side. So yeah, good work there, guys. I'm really happy with how y'all are identifying with these things. All right, cool. So let's get into the soul types. All right. So this is kind of going to be like just more expansive and like our wants and desires and what our soul desires and really how we show up in the world. I think these four are really powerful. So we'll go over the Explorer. Motto, don't fence me in. Core desire, the freedom to find out who you are through exploring the world. Goal, to experience a better, more authentic, more fulfilling life. Biggest fear, getting trapped. Conformity and inner emptiness. Strategy, journey, seeking out and experiencing new things. I'll add seeking challenges. Escape from boredom. Weakness, aimless wandering, becoming a misfit. Talent, autonomy, ambition, being true to one's soul. The Explorer is also known as the Seeker. I don't know how to say that. And no, I'm not even gonna fucking try that.
Iconoclast.
All right, cool. Thanks, Heidi. The Wanderer, Individualist, and the Pilgrim. And I think these go hand in hand, like with the Rebel as well. Mottos, rules are made to be broken. Core desire, revenge, or revolution. Goal, to overturn what isn't working. Greatest fear, to be powerless or ineffectual. Strategy, disrupt, destroy, or shock. Weakness, crossing over to the dark side. Crime. Talent, outrageousness, radical freedom. The Outlaw is also known as the Rebel, the Revolutionary, Wild Man, the Misfit, or the Iconoclast, right? Iconoclast. So yeah, dude, I see a lot of similarities in these. I've like Heidi knows the Rebel archetype has quite literally changed my fucking life. I wish I would have found out about the Rebel 20 years ago. I just didn't have access to this sort of information, but came at the right time. It was all in perfect timing. So we'll expand on that in a second. But yeah, anybody see anything in these that sticks out?
I definitely feel like these are the two I relate to the most so far. But I feel like the one that really just hits every pinpoint for me is the Explorer. Like I
Yeah.
feel like that's like literally me, everything that's there.
Yeah. That's dope. I know that feels good to like see yourself in these, where you're like, damn, like somebody has experienced and quantified and, figured out what I am. They've written
Yeah.
about it. There's books on the Explorer. These archetypes are everywhere. They're in movies, they're in books, they're literally everything that we're built on. It's our source for all creativity. And I think it helps us so much to be able to just be like, damn, I am that. Like I identify with that. I see the good, I see the bad. And now that I know what I am, now I know how I can work on it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's keep going. All right, so two more soul types. The Lover. Motto, you're the only one. Valentine's Day just went down, so we probably all touched on the Lover archetype, but core or not, core desire, intimacy and experience. Goal, being in a relationship with people, work and surroundings they love. Greatest fear, being alone, a wallflower, unwanted, unloved. Strategy, to become more and more physically and emotionally attractive. Weakness, outward directed desire to please other at risk of losing one's own identity. Talent, passion and gratitude, appreciation and commitment. The Lover is also known as the partner, friend, intimate, enthusiast, sensualist, spouse, team builder. We'll go into the Creator and the Artist. Motto, if you can imagine it, it can be done. Core desire, to create things of enduring value. Goal, to realize a vision. Greatest fear, mediocre vision or execution. Strategy, develop artistic control and skill. Task, to create culture, express own vision. Weakness, perfectionism, bad solutions. Talent, creativity and imagination. The Creator is also known as the artist, inventor, innovator, musician, writer, or dreamer. Heidi, I feel like you have something to say on this one.
Oh yeah, that one hits. They both do, but definitely the Creator artist hits pretty hard. And I'm glad that they mentioned perfectionism in there because that is definitely, I feel like, falls a little bit more into the shadow expression of this archetype and something that I have wrestled with my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, you know, the whole kind of tortured artist lifestyle.
Yeah.
And
That's
yeah, definitely easy to fall victim to, just generally feeling inadequate.
yeah.
But also, like, you can't stop and you just have to create and make the things. There's something in you that just feels like you have to do it, and you can't even really explain what it is.
Yeah.
But it's like part of your soul would die if you didn't.
Totally. Yeah. No, I relate heavily with the creator and artist. You know, I haven't really been in the lover archetype, but I do see a lot of commonalities in the creator and the archetype, artist archetype. Um, I imagine, you know, Derek with music and production, you probably relate with this one as well.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to the artist side.
Yeah.
I definitely am like somewhat of a perfectionist at times. Like I always feel like whatever I get into, I just want to be the best at, like
Yeah.
whatever I do. Like I just don't want to be mediocre in whatever I do. Everything that I do, I want to be like one of the best at it.
Yeah. And that's a good trait, man. Yeah. Maintain that. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of strength in these archetypes. If you can identify with those things that make you feel grounded and you're clear on like, I am that, I am an artist. You know, I am a rebel, then like create your art through disrupting.
Yeah.
Make people feel something when you create your art. You know, it's like we can start to combine these and really find our identity and how we show up. And I'm gonna have to go through these a little quicker because my computer is just like draining on battery. Um, so I hope we can maintain this call. So I apologize. All right, let's jump into the self types. The jester motto: you only live once. YOLO. Core desire to live in the moment with full enjoyment. Goal to have a great time and lighten up the world. Greatest fear: being bored or boring others. Strategy: play, make jokes, be funny. Weakness: frivolity, wasting time. Talent: joy. The jester is also known as the fool, the trickster, the joker, the practical joker, the comedian. I'll add the clown, you know. So it's like how are you, you know, extending yourself? And this, like, again, this can be positive, this also can be negative. We've all worked in environments where there's somebody that can never take anything seriously. They're always kind of displacing, you know, their energy through joking. They're not really like facing reality. So again, there's always there, we can find how we can start to see the shadow side of these archetypes.
We
Uh,
probably all had those in boot camp.
Oh yeah, 100%, you know, and that's how we do that shit. You know, we had to find the lighter side of things. And I think that's a skill, man. You know, I think you know, the military in general just taught me that. Like you're in some fucked up conditions, um, you know, with a workload hanging over your head or, you know, weather that's less than ideal. And like really the only way to get through the day was, you know, joke around. And I still implement the
Yeah.
gesture
I ain't gonna
heavily.
lie, I turned into a comedian. You guys,
Yeah.
Derek in high school when my mother passed. I was in 10th grade and that's how I cope with life. And now people always tell me I should be a comedian or do a podcast or record myself. But
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's important to look at that, you know, and I want you to do some work there where, you know, I think, you know, if we go through loss as well and we turn to this jester archetype, like we can also be neglecting, you know, sitting with that grief and really processing what happened. So, and I've worked with a lot of comedians, you know, and a lot of comedians are pretty lost and, you know, like in a pretty bad place, and that's just how they've related with others. That's how they've gotten that, they've filled that void, is by, you know, being funny and laughing. And so when if I see somebody that, you know, is stuck in the jester archetype, like I kind of worry about them, you know, because if they can't separate from it and they're not
see,
embodying,
that's the difference from being stuck in it. That'd be my problem. I
yeah,
don't get stuck in it. I
yeah,
turn
that's
into a
good.
little and I just
Yeah,
get into my books and try to get as smart as I can.
that's good, man. Yeah, good awareness there. All right. So the sage, we've got the truth will set you free, core desire to find the truth, goal to use intelligence and analysis to understand the world, biggest fear, being duped, misled, or ignorance, strategy, seeking out information and knowledge, self-reflection and understanding thought processes, weakness, can study details forever and never act,
Oh
talent,
my.
intelligence. The sage is also known as the expert, scholar, detective, advisor, thinker, philosopher, academic, researcher, thinker, planner, professional, mentor, teacher, contemplative. This one has been highlighted for me a lot lately. This message has been coming up.
Yeah.
I've been listening to like podcasts and people speak about this where like knowledge is also an escape and a crutch, you know, for people to, like we were talking about earlier with the control aspects, with wanting to implement some sense of explanation to everything, you know, and I thought that was interesting how highly, you know, like um you know, like educated people, like they can escape to that as well, you know, and they may not have the best social skills. They may not be able to relate to others, or they may not have any sense of humor. They may not embody that gesture ever. They may never play. They may just always be taking things literally. Um, and kind of that's their crutch as well. So something to focus on there. All right, so the magician, this one's huge. We see it everywhere. Motto: I can make things happen. Core desire: understanding the fundamental laws of universe. Goal: to make dreams come true. Greatest fear: unintended negative consequences. Strategy: develop a vision and live by it. Weakness: becoming manipulative. Talent: finding win-win solutions. The magician is also known as the visionary, catalyst, inventor, charismatic leader, shaman, healer, medicine man. The ruler,
Slash holistic.
yep. The
Man,
ruler,
this one.
what's that?
Oh, go ahead. We can talk about it in a minute.
All right. The ruler, power isn't everything, it's the only thing. Core desire, control, goal, create a prosperous, successful family or community. Strategy, exercise power. Greatest fear, chaos, being overthrown. Weakness, being authoritarian, unable to delegate. Talent, responsibility, leadership. The ruler is also known as the boss, leader, aristocrat, king, queen, politician, role model, manager, or administrator. So these are both huge, and hopefully we embody both in some ways of our lives. But what are we seeing in these?
Evan, so the magician here, I think I saw something about manipulative.
Yep,
Yeah, weakness, becoming manipulative.
yep,
So, man, that one really kind of sticks out in my brain a little bit. Kind of relating back earlier to the everyman.
uh-huh,
And my thought on that everyman was, so I guess a good example, um, kind of where I work, and it's not just here, it could be anywhere, but just a quick example would be, I work in the office with a bunch of engineers, but then I also work with contractors out in the field, and so you kind of get a little bit of mix of everything. A lot of these guys working construction are a little rougher around the edges. A lot of the guys, you come back in the office and it's a little more prim and proper. And so that was one thing I was thinking about during the everyman was, you know, if I really reflect on it, it's like I'm not necessarily the same person all the time, because when I go and someone really intelligent and they're kind of straight and narrow person, it's very professional. I go out in the field and I'm like, oh, what's up, motherfucker? Like,
yeah,
and trying to balance that, where you can, come in and get very technical, get in the weeds about things, but then go out in the field and it's a lot more practical.
totally.
um, and so yeah, like kind of that art of manipulation a little bit. Not to say that you're trying to manipulate someone in a bad way, but it's just, I don't know, I guess that's just something that stood out to me. That's something that now that I read this, I'm like, wow, I do that.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you, man. And I think we'll touch on that a little bit. I've got a few examples that like I've come across that I really resonate with that touch on that. I think, you can combine these archetypes. I think if someone is embodying the everyman and the magician, that's a dangerous place to be. I think like the way I would kind of sum that up is like if someone's being a fake, or they've got intentions that they're not really being real about, they're not being completely truthful. They've got some, initiatives that you may or may not know about. You might kind of get this feeling like, what do you want from me? Like, what do you, and like, I think the magician, it also, touches on that, becoming manipulative. Like, so, that person that goes, I can make things happen. I can make your dreams come true, but also like if there's that everyman kind of archetype, I could see these playing hand in hand where like if they're a people pleaser and they just want everybody to like them, that might be how they relate in the world. So I think like that's how these things, can show up. And if that's the case, like they may not know that that's having a negative effect on the world around them. And we all do this. We all embody this at certain points. But I think, if you let it go too far, that's when it can have negative consequences. So again, it's like, I think all these things help us kind of ground down into what our reality is. So I'll go over kind of like what my experience with archetypes is, and you'll notice here these have different names, but they're very much like in line with a lot of these archetypes. So I want to encourage you also to like, if anything sticks out with these and you do any research this week and you look up other archetypes, or you think of anything that kind of resembles a label, see what you can relate it to in these 12 archetypes. See if you can find it, but you might have another name for it. So the first one I became aware of was the chameleon. Okay. So I had a friend when I first got out of the military that applauded me on my ability to fit in a variety of environments. And so this was something that I really embodied, and I took a lot of pride in that. I thought back to my whole life. I was like, yeah, like I've always gotten along with everybody. I've always been friends with a whole lot of different types of people. I've always been able to fit in a variety of environments. But something that was interesting was this theory of identity fluidity, this ability to shift and, reshape myself and carry myself in this variety of ways to fit in. Like you're saying, Nick, from going to the office to the field, you're able to shift and adapt to that environment, just like a chameleon does. They blend into their environment. And that's the protective mechanism. That's a survival instinct. That's your safety. What I started to realize was I shifted shapes so many fucking times and changed my identity. Like even these photos here, like on the screen, you can see that like I physically have embodied like completely different looks and people throughout my journey, and it's like I took pride in all of these different stages, but it started to get to a point where I started to lose sense of, again, what my identity was, who I really was, where I come from, and what my values were, because like kind of got in the tendency of just like my values were what their values were. And, like, I'm like, yeah, I can fit in like this. And, yeah, I care about the same things. And then I just started to lose track of like really who I was. And now, like, now that I've done some work, like now what I try to embody is my identity, who I really am. And if that makes somebody uncomfortable or it's too intense or they don't like it, then like, fuck it. We're on different planes, like I'm going to find my people. I'm going to find my purpose, but I'm going to stay grounded in who I am throughout. And, if you like it, if you don't like it, then like, sorry, it is what it is, so that kind of leads me to the rebel. I'll probably touch on this more and more, like as we dive into this course and material, but the rebel quite literally changed my life, and Heidi helped me find this archetype in a really, really special way. And when I found out about this archetype, it was amazing because she read me this reading about this, you know, individual who had broken the chains of repressive society. He had broken out. It was very disruptive. It made people kind of feel uncomfortable or doubt themselves. And he had no sense of place. He had no belonging. He belonged to no country. He belonged to no community. You know, like it really encapsulated everything that I felt in that stage of my life, because like I kind of felt like I didn't quite fit in anywhere. And then I realized like that's my greatest strength, you know, like that ability to step out and disrupt and, you know, make people feel things and question, you know, like the things and how they're happening around them. I was like, damn, like that's a real power. Obviously with awareness to have, but it made me feel a lot more comfortable in who I was and how I related with the world around me. Um, and then the torchbearer. The torchbearer is the the archetype that I want integrate to embody. Like this entire program is built on the torchbearer archetype. So this is one's ability to lead. The way I talk about this is like, imagine that, you know, you're in a village and there's imminent danger on the horizon and you have to make a decision. You have to leave that village. And so you pick up a torch and you say, hey, everybody that's going to come with me, we're going this way. Right. And some people are going to follow you, some aren't, you know, and that's their decision. So I think as leaders, I really like this kind of philosophy that as a leader, you may not know what's over that next horizon, but your willingness to lead and to venture into the unknown and to support others around you, that's what makes you a leader. So you don't have to have everything figured out. Like you don't have to have the question of where we're going and what it's going to be like, and like give everybody that type of support. All you got to do is have the confidence to say, hey, I've made a decision. We're going this way. And like, if we split our ways or you want to go a different direction, I'm going to take my torch, I'm going to light your torch, and I'm going to empower you to be your own leader. Right. So that's what this program is about, is how can we become leaders in our own lives? How can we become a light? And then how can we extend that to other leaders and empower people and help them on this journey of self-realization, to them figuring out like, oh shit, I can do this as well. I can be that type of leader that inspires people and lifts others up. So we'll touch on that more and more. That's kind of a brief explanation of that archetype, but it's given me a really just clear sense on like what leadership actually is and what it looks like. It's that ability to take action, and you may not know everything. So does that resonate?
Yeah, I think it definitely resonates. Like I think it's like when you're finding yourself or you're trying to find ways to be successful, I think like what you guys have really been touching on, one of the most important things is to just hold yourself accountable. Like know that you have made mistakes in the past and accept it and just learn from that experience just to be better next time.
100%. That
And then
willingness to everything.
yeah, and one thing I like to always tell myself is like, you know, nothing really is impossible because, you know, when you look at the creative things that humans have done throughout history, like, you know, there was a time where people were like, oh, humans will never be able to fly, but somebody had an idea that was like, that invented airplanes or invented jetpacks. Somebody invented boats or cars. Like somebody had an idea to make something possible that didn't seem possible before. So
Yeah,
that's why I always have that mentality, like nothing's impossible. There's nothing like that you can't do if you really put your mind to it.
100%. Yeah, man, I completely agree. So just to update y'all on my battery. I got 1% left. I might lose y'all here in a sec, but I'll just switch to my phone and we'll pick right up where we leave off. All right. So if I drop out, no, I'll be back on in the next 30 seconds or so. All right. So we're going to shift into intro to human design. I think this is another just super powerful tool. You know, it's a pretty wide lens of information. I was talking to Heidi yesterday and we were just like, yeah, by no means are we experts on this, but we found it really useful. And so we wanted to dive into it. Inevitably there's a lot of truth in this. And, you know, I think, just like we did with archetypes, like I want y'all to dive into this and see what you recognize. And then we'll kind of recap it next week. But Heidi, do you want to intro human design?
Sure. So yeah, human design, in a way, it gives you like a blueprint to your being on all different levels, like the archetypes, how they were broken up into segments. Your human design really touches on all the different components of your being. So your physical, your psychological, your spiritual, what am I missing? Feeling like I'm missing something. All right. Well, anyhow, yeah, like every aspect of your being. And it's really helpful for like it says here in these bullet points, identifying patterns and creating awareness around trends in your life and personality, but also helping you understand why you do things the way that you do, why there are these overarching themes, patterns, characteristics in your life, how you show up, certain desires, or things that you're drawn to, ways that you do things, how you are in relationship. And so I think like the archetypes, it can help shed light on why you do what you do, and therefore help to empower you to make intentional decisions about how you want to manifest on these different spectrums, instead of just being reactive and moving through our life subconsciously. And personally, human design really helped me reconnect with parts of myself that I had a contentious relationship with, like things that I thought were wrong with me or that I needed to change. It helped